California. Our mission is to provide support services to naval installations and ships located throughout California, Arizona, and Nevada. We currently have 15 major installations that are open, 65-plus ships home ported in Southern California, well over a dozen aircraft squadrons, and half a dozen helicopter squadrons. Personnel levels are currently in excess of 117,000 folks, military and civilian. So we have a relatively large community to deal with. Some of those installations are as far north as NAS, Fallon, Nevada. We address CBC, Port Hueneme, Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake. We have 4 installations in San Diego area. So we're all pretty well spread out. The landfill that the military community uses in San Diego is the Miramar landfill. It is 800-plus acres located on DOD property, Department of Defense property. That area is leased to the City of San Diego. The City of San Diego operates that landfill. And as part of that lease agreement, the Navy and the Marine Corps community were allowed free tipping. That sets up some pluses and minuses, which I'll get into in a minute, as you can imagine. Miramar landfill was initially scheduled to close in 2005. Its projected life as of now is 2012. They just opened the last cell at Miramar as it stands now. So we have a finite closure date, which is part of the reason that this program that I operate came into existence. Part of the extension, the City of San Diego directly credits to the military and the program. We've kept well over 1 million tons of potentially landfillable material out of the landfill since this program started. There may be hope for the landfill to stay open longer. There is a process ongoing now to extend the elevation of the landfill. I have personal opinions about how that will come out, but it probably will happen in the end, but we certainly can't count on that, so we continue to work on the efforts that we are. The reason that we developed this program, essentially, the City of San Diego came to us in 1988 or 89, us being the military community, and had figured out that they would never reach compliance with AB 39 as a city with the amount of material that the Navy was landfilling at that time. So they came to us and asked us to try to figure out a way to reduce the amount of material that the military community was putting in a landfill. I'm going to focus today mostly on the City of San Diego, partly because that's where I am all the time. That's where I'm headquartered, and we have a unique relationship there with the city that allows us to do the program that I'm going to explain to you a little bit. One of the problems that we had, or the challenges that we had, was that because the Navy and the Marine Corps community was allowed free tipping, the mine frame was simply loaded up in a roll-off and haul it off to the landfill. We don't need to do anything else with it. It's the cheapest way to get rid of it, and we don't need to do anything else with it. That mindset was well embedded in everyone, and to change that mind frame is a challenge that, unfortunately, I still continue to deal with some folks, although over the last 5 years we have been able to do that. When the city came to the military, we developed what was called at that point a 9-point plan. We sat down amongst the military folks and tried to figure out how we would be able to resolve this issue. That 9-point plan then turned into an instruction, which I'm going to talk to you about here briefly. We established what's called a memorandum of understanding, sort of a military term, although it's used in municipalities as well somewhat, with the city. And what we basically said in that memorandum of understanding was that we did understand what the issues were, and that we had a plan in place now to address those issues. One of the keys to that memorandum of understanding that came out of the 9-point plan was that we decided that the only way that we would be able to physically control what did or did not enter the landfill was to issue what we call landfill coupons. The end result was that today and over the past 5 years, the Navy sends nothing to the landfill that doesn't have what's called a landfill coupon with it. And there's a process for monitoring that. We then developed a regional instruction. Of course, the military doesn't function at all without instructions and guidelines, so we had to develop that guideline. It's called Common Nav Region Southwest Instruction 11350.1, but the point that I want to make to that is that the instruction carries the same weight as an ordinance would in a city. Once you get it to a written documented instruction phase, you begin to have a little bit of weight when you go in and talk to people, and you can put it down on the desk and say, the Admiral signed this, you know, this is law, this is not if you feel like doing it. So that was a big step for us. There are 4 types of landfill coupons that we issue. Landfill coupons are issued only out of my office, and there are only about 3 folks, myself and a couple folks in my office, who are authorized to sign those coupons. Mixed construction and demolition debris coupons, that's for material that we just don't have a place to get rid of. General refuse coupons, that's the normal solid waste, general refuse stuff that's generated. Clean green coupons, which are obviously clean greens, and clean fill coupons. So we regulate what goes in, and a landfill tracks those for me. I get a monthly report of those by coupon type. The instruction requires all work, both contractor and naval generated, to submit either what's called a solid waste management plan or an opportunity assessment form. We've drawn the line at 500 tons as of perceived waste or generated waste as the line between small projects and large projects. What we didn't want to do was burden folks who have to go out and tear up a sidewalk or that kind of thing with having to produce a document, an encompassing document called a solid waste management plan. We gave them a 1-page form to do, which is an opportunity assessment form. On that plan or form, the project foreman, the contractor, or whoever is involved must indicate the types and amounts of waste to be generated and the proposed final disposition of those wastes. The plan must indicate what and how much debris is expected to be diverted and recycled and how much is expected to go to the landfill. So at that point, early on in the process, we're asking the project managers and the contractors to actually stop whatever it is they've been doing and take a look at what waste they're going to generate, and not only what they're going to generate, but what it is they're going to do with that waste. This is an actual cover sheet of a solid waste management plan. This is actually a project that's going on now. They're constructing a new main gate and entrance at the Naval Air Station at North Island. This gets to be a little bit hard to read, and you almost can't read it. I apologize for that. But the things that I wanted to point out in there are that this particular project, they have defined that they're going to generate 3,384 tons of waste, and that 92.7% of that waste they're going to divert away from the landfill. So we have minimum requirements that we put on our contractors. The Navy standard, what's called the measure of merit, is a 40% diversion reduction. That instruction also says, or the state mandate, whichever is higher. So we ask all of our contractors to target a minimum of 50%. But when I talk to them initially, I also let them know that I know better. You know, 50% is kind of the bare minimum. So this particular project, very well done. These guys are a Birch company we've been working with a long time on a lot of projects. I was very happy to see this 92.7% diversion rate when it came in. Again, this is a little bit hard to read, and I apologize, but what I wanted to show you here was their material breakdown. They diverted all the material, broken down all the materials: concrete, steel, wood, asphalt, soil, masonry, clean green, etc., and indicated to me how many tons they're going to divert away from the landfill. So this is sort of the process. I apologize for it being so small. Once they have done this plan, it is submitted to my office and reviewed by me. I am looking for their efforts in the recycling, reuse, diversion, and landfill disposal as a last option. That plan is either approved by me as submitted, or I send it back to them with comments if I see, you know, it's something that I don't like there. I just got done reviewing one before I came up here where they said they were going to send 1,200 tons of cardboard to the landfill. Well, not on my watch, as we say in the military. So that went back for comments, and they came back and said, yeah, we didn't really mean that. But I still find folks who kind of only, sometimes I feel like they're testing me to see if I really read them, but that's okay. Not too many of them get by me. As well as anything else, because my good buddies up at the landfill, if a load of that happened to come in, would take a nice digital picture of it and email it to me and say, what are you doing? And then I get to take that back to the contractor and say, what are you doing? But so the plans are reviewed and approved through my office. Once they've been approved and the construction office gives the notice to proceed, our office will issue at the contractor's request through the project manager, the Navy project manager, a request for initial coupons. One of the ways that we found was best to control the landfill coupons and make sure that they weren't being misused or abused was to only issue them for 30 days. So there is a start date. 30 days later, those coupons expire. Okay. The landfill counts all those as they come through the gate. They send me a report. And the contractor, when he wants his second month's worth, brings me back the ones he didn't use. So that way I know that they're not out there being used for non-military waste being disposed of at the landfill, which at one point was a pretty big problem for us. So we went to that 30-day program. Once the project's underway, then the military project manager, as well as the contract project manager and myself, will make periodic checks to the site to ensure that that diversion is occurring. It's one thing to tell me you're going to do it. It's another thing to show me that you're doing it. So we do have a process in place for myself to go out and make sure that that's working. Part of the instruction and part of the contracts when they're let also requires the project to submit monthly diversion reports. Okay, again, that's a check for me to know that they are in fact doing what it is they said they were going to do. And to be honest with you, that's the biggest problem I have right now is drawing those reports in. It's a paperwork drill that our contractors are not familiar with doing, and they consider it a burden. I consider it something they need to do to continue their project. So once in a while I go round and round with them about that, but it's not really that big of an issue. Does the program work? In the year 2005, the Navy generated potentially 247,445 tons of landfillable construction and demolition debris. Utilizing this program, we were able to divert away from the landfill in excess of 200,000 tons, a diversion rate in excess of 82%. This in an area where there's no mixed C&D recycling facility yet. End uses for the diverted materials. We have a very good relationship with the landfill, and they are able to utilize a lot of the materials that potentially could have been landfilled in other ways, such as their milled asphalt, projects that generate milled asphalt. That asphalt's either reused on a project or sent to the landfill for temporary roads. 800 acres is a lot of space. They lay that material down as roads, and we're given credit as a diversion on that because it's not going to the hull. Asphalt normally ends up at the local area recyclers. There is an infrastructure in San Diego County, especially in the San Diego East County, where there are concrete and asphalt recyclers. If you were to call the Miramar landfill right now and ask them if they accept concrete and asphalt for the whole, they will tell you that they do, and they do. And they charge $43 a ton for that. My program will not allow any Navy or Marine Corps contracts to put concrete or asphalt in a landfill. We banned it from the landfill. It's sent to recyclers. Concrete used on base normally as a base material or sent to recyclers out in town. Clean fill material, the landfill accepts from us, and they use that as ADC, Again, doesn't count against us as going in the hole. Greens go to the greenery at the landfill. They go through their composting facility. We're allowed to draw greens from the landfill whenever we want mulch or compost material. Drywall cuttings go to the greenery as well. One of the areas with contractors that I face some difficulty with. They're not yet real willing to separate their drywall cuttings, their clean drywall cuttings, from the rest of their waste, but we're working on that one. Clean wood cuttings go to the landfill. They are ground up for wood chips. Again, don't go to the hole. And reuse materials that come out, the Navy in San Diego is working very hard on their Navy housing. There are redevelopment projects for 3 or 4 Navy housing areas in San Diego going on now. All of that material that gets, the reuse materials, the stoves, the garage doors, windows, refrigerators, all of the white goods, all those kinds of things, as a mandatory rule are pulled out, and most of them end up down in Mexico. But the contractors report all of that to me as diverted material. This is just a graph that shows you that in 1998, before this program was put into effect, the Navy was contributing well over 20% of all the material that was buried at the Miramar landfill. In 99, when we instituted the program, we were able to drop that down, and in last year, we were about 5.5% of the 1.5 million tons of material that's buried every year at the Miramar landfill. The city's very happy with us. In conclusion, this type of program can work. I think I'm living proof of that. City of San Diego, as most of you probably know, has developed the C&D ordinance. In part modeled by this program. We worked with the city probably for a year or so in development of their ordinance. If you don't know, they are holding that ordinance until they open a mixed C&D facility at Miramar. I won't tell you my personal views of that, but we're waiting for that to happen. If you're going to institute a program like this, though, you must have the buy-in from all involved, whether that's forced or voluntary. You must have to write it into your RFPs. You have to start very early on in the process, or you're doomed for failure, in my opinion. On-site source separation is a must for this kind of a program. Contractors will balk at that, and in some limited instances that may be a concern. My personal opinion is that's an excuse. Lastly, don't write it if you can't enforce it. Okay? There are ordinances out there that are not enforced. They don't have the manpower to enforce the ordinance, and it becomes an ordinance like a lot of others. It's on the books, and that's all it is. So if you're considering a program like this or an ordinance like this, be ready to back it up, or you're wasting your time.